So, as you can see behind me, I'm kind of a fan of Doctor Who on VHS. Basically, I have every single Doctor Who PAL BBC VHS release that has been released for the series. And so that means that it also includes the stories that have multiple releases. For example, An Earthly Child, The Daleks, Revenge of the Cybermen, all these wonderful stories that had multiple releases. I have them all. I collected every single iteration of the VHS, not the beta, not the Laserdisc, but of the VHS. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to be able to talk about them. I wanted to be able to look at them one by one and kind of be a bit nostalgic about it, because the truth is that now with DVD and Blu-rays, for a lot of people these have been forgotten, and for a lot of us this was like really the big way of collecting Doctor Who in any way, shape, or form, unless you recorded them off the air, which, being from the U.S., that was pretty easy to do.
Doctor Who is brought to you locally by the Unpainted Place, designers, builders, and retailers of natural wood furniture.
But in my area, it was always movie version. And movie version is great to watch, but for me, I wanted to see them episodically, the way that they were originally shown. And so I knew that I needed to find them episodically some way. Eventually, BBC Video, or BBC Enterprises, I guess, started releasing these, and they didn't release them episodically, but we'll get to all that eventually. They, eventually did release them episodically. I started collecting the NTSC versions, but the problem with that is that I wanted them to be in the nice hard cases. I wanted them to look really nice, and the UK releases always looked really amazing. And so, taking Tomb as an example here, it's in a nice hard case. The problem was it's in PAL. And in the US, of course, it's all about NTSC. And that's going to be a long story that I'll talk about over time. But I made a decision at one point that everything I collected was going to be in PAL for PAL VHS. Because at that point, I thought, well, this is the only way that I'm ever going to get these. They'll never re-release these. So this is going to be the permanent solution to getting Doctor Who on video. This was at a time that no one ever thought that there would be something like DVD, Blu-ray, or that, this thing would be released so many times. Thankfully it has, because there's been so many good things that have come from it that we, as Doctor Who fans, I don't think would have ever expected, including the technology to be able to colorize something like The Mind of Evil, or put Vidfire into the black and white stories, and all the care and attention and all the extras. But this was the starting point for so many of us, and these mean so much to us that I really wanted to have an opportunity to kind of go through these stories one by one and just see what the memories for me, a little bit of history about them, anything that we could come up with about them, and just kind of talk about it a little bit and see what we would come up with and just talk about it. Now remember, I am not an expert on Doctor Who on VHS. I have memories of it. I know what I know. I have ways of looking up stuff, but I might get some stuff wrong. And if I do, feel free to send me a polite note. Let me know, and I'll be happy at some point to revise these videos. Hey, if the BBC could release these things a number of times, so could I, right? And just from there, see what what we know, and share our memories about these wonderful video releases. This is kind of a pilot to what I want to do. If no one's interested in these videos, I'm not going to do them. I do a set of videos for DVD and Blu-ray releases from my brand, From the Archive, a British television vlog. And I don't really touch Doctor Who that much because everyone talks about Doctor Who. But I decided that because I have this wonderful collection, for the first time in 20-some years, I've actually put back up on the shelves. I thought, I want to talk about these, and I think some people would be interested. So let me know if you are enjoying these, if this is something you want me to continue, because this has been about a year that I've been thinking about doing this project. And now I'm getting to a point that I can do it. And I want to be able to see if there's interest in it, because I'm really excited about it. And I'm really excited about talking about these. Going forward, if I do go forward on these, I'm probably going to pick stories that are also out on Blu-ray, because that way I'm able to kind of, in some way, maybe not in great depth, cover all the physical releases, because we are being told that Blu-ray is the final physical release, just like I believe that VHS was the final physical release. But I wanted to be able to be as complete as possible. Now you'll be like, well, Greg, Tomb of the Cybermen is not on Blu-ray yet. That's true. This is, like I said, a pilot. I wanted to pick a story that I really like and just kind of see how this works and see what the reaction is to it. And hopefully all of you find this worthwhile and enjoyable, because it's really a lot of fun for me. So let me know what you think about this video. Let me know if you'd like me to continue on. But going forward, we'll probably pick something that, is from one of the collection box sets or one of the animations. Like I say, I do a review vlog that we've been picking on just British television that's not Doctor Who. This is kind of my opportunity to talk about some of those Blu-rays also, if that's of interest to people. So with that, let's talk a little bit about this wonderful story, The Tomb of the Cybermen. And I picked this one because it has so many good memories. So the thing about The Tomb of the Cybermen is that it goes back to, on VHS, the very beginning of the range. This was considered to be one of the first, considered for being one of the first releases in the VHS range. And I could already hear some people who may not know be like, no, you're wrong. The range started in 83. This was not even found and returned to the BBC until 92. But at Longleat, for the 20th anniversary of Doctor Who, they had that big celebration at Longleat. They had a survey out there, and the survey was, we're going to release some Doctor Who on VHS. What story would you like to see released? And what they came up with, the people who voted, they overwhelmingly, they wanted The Tomb of the Cybermen, which is great. I think it would be a fantastic story to release on VHS. The one slight quibble to this is simply that The Tomb of the Cybermen at that point did not reside within the BBC archive. Now, I would say it did not exist, but that's not true, because we know it existed because we got it back. The thing is, though, that the BBC Enterprises was like, well, what are we going to do? They want this Cybermen story, and what they ended up doing was releasing, because rightly so, they thought Tom Baker's a very popular doctor. They want a Cybermen story. Let's do the Revenge of the Cybermen. So they came up and they released Revenge of the Cybermen. And this is the very first Doctor Who release on VHS. And it is an amazing piece. And we're not going to get too heavily into this, because this video is not about Revenge of the Cybermen. But it had our Cybermen, it had our Doctor. Yes, none of the elements of this cover match what Revenge of the Cybermen is. That's okay, because we'll talk about that some other point. And that is something that I do want to talk about in these videos, are these wonderful elements that make up the experience, the nostalgia of having Doctor Who on VHS. This is pretty rare and very brittle and fragile. And I'm glad that they didn't release them all in big cases like this. But at this point, because this was a one-off to start things, I don't think that they were expecting, this wasn't necessarily just for everyone to buy, this kind of special purchase sort of thing. The next one that has the neon logo still on it would be the Five Doctors. And that is in our standard case, which in fact is right here. But we'll get to all these soon enough. Now, the one thing about Tomb of the Cybermen, as we mentioned, is that it did not reside in the BBC archive. And that was kind of a big turning point for BBC Video, and also the return of missing episodes, because It was in 1991 that I think the BBC archive learned that there was going to be a large amount of films coming back to the BBC from Hong Kong. Amongst them would be episodes of Softly Softly, and there was 4 episodes, 4 prints of Doctor Who. But at that time, was it Steve Bryant? I don't think it was Steve Bryant, who was the head of BBC archives. It was actually Adam Lee, who was told that these film prints would be coming back to them. And so he was kind of waiting for them. But what ended up happening is that the film prints were returned to BBC Enterprises, not to the BBC archives. Probably because that is where Hong Kong bought the episodes from to begin with. So they were picked up in the loading area, and this is information that I got from Wiped, that I'm paraphrasing. Wiped is a fantastic book about missing episodes, and if you haven't, and this is through Telus, if you haven't picked this up, and this has been revised, this is a really fantastic read about missing episodes, and you can see that they're talking quite a bit about missing episodes. It's not skimpy, is it? So this return to BBC Enterprises, David Steed went down to look for, because he knew that there were some film prints coming back, and they asked him to, the BBC Enterprises asked him to look for them. He found Tomb of the Cybermen, and basically BBC, because he found it, and he unspooled the film to see what it was, because I guess the film print said MM on it, which is the story code, but I don't think he realized that those story codes, because he clearly didn't look it up. He unraveled the film to see the name of the story. He got in touch with his boss, and they basically held on to the prints, although alerting Adam Lee, but they wanted to hold on to it because they were afraid, and rightly so, because how many of these episodes did we get from the archives that before they were released, that they wanted to hold on to because they wanted to do a rush video release. And doing so, they're afraid that if it went back to the BBC archives, that pirated copies would get out, and they wanted to be able to have the opportunity to be able to sell this and not have it be bootlegged before it comes out. And that's not an unreasonable request, I would think. Even though as much as I'd like to get this stuff early, if you're able to get these out to us right away, then that's perfect. So you end up having this situation. Now, it was officially announced in DWM in March of 1992. I believe DWB in April of 1992. Huge splash. I mean, it was just pretty much amazing that this stuff, that it got found. People were rejoicing in the streets. There was, parades, all sorts of amazing things about this. But I'll tell you, and that is that I was at a convention known as Visions in 1991. It's November of 1991. And what happened to me there is I had the previous year, at the very first Visions, I had met a gentleman by the name of Louis Buxey's Singh. And Louis had been all around the world. He said he had lived all around the world. He said that he had seen Doctor Who episodes on the air in places like Cyprus and other things. And I mean, it sounds like that maybe he lived with his family and whatnot. And, obviously, it's tough to want to believe somebody. First of all, back in those days, and I think to a certain extent now, I mean, like the Omni rumor and whatnot, but back in those days, everyone had a story about a missing episode of Doctor Who. Everyone had either knew someone who had something, saw something, so as much as, you want to believe someone, and I'm gullible for this stuff. I always have been. I am somebody who had believed the Omni rumor, okay? Let's just put it out there. I'm not afraid to admit that I was one of them. But the thing about Buxey's is that he told me that Tomb of the Cybermen had been returned to the BBC archive, or was about to be returned, I think is really what it was. And I thought to myself, oh, sure, whatever. And the thing about that is that if you throw enough rumors out there, one is going to stick eventually, right? I mean, even if you're just shooting from your hip. There's something about Lewis, though, that I've always believed. And Lewis plays a part in Tomb of the Cybermen for my story in a little bit. But just know that it's not like, it wasn't like a big deal. He just said it. He just said, oh, it's going to be returned. He didn't go as far as like, and it's going to be released on video next year. He's just like, it's just been found and it's going to be returned. And that was pretty incredible. And I will always remember that. And in fact, that and other things are in my blog from thearchive.co.uk. I have a story about Tomb of the Cybermen, and it's what it meant to me finding it, a part of a series of articles I did back in 2013 called 50 Who. And 50 Who was really one story from each doctor, my personal affection for it and why it meant something for me. So check that out if you have a chance. But so with Lewis telling me that Tomb of the Cybermen had been found, I was just kind of like, sure. I'm not here to say no, but I mean, I'm telling my friends afterwards, like, yeah, this guy says that Tomb of the Cybermen's been found. They're just like, are you really believing this? No, whatever. I mean, give me a break, right? I was like 16 at the time, so just relax, right? I was excited for everything. Someday I'll talk about how I drove a guy who I was doing video trading with pretty much to stop responding to me because I'd call him so much, wanting to get new copies of things. I wouldn't be like that. Come on, I'm not weird. The thing about Tomb of the Cybermen was that I think a lot of us just, I don't want to speak for all of Doctor Who fandom from the 1990s, but I think a great fair few of us did not think that the Tomb of the Cybermen would be a story that would ever be found again. It just didn't feel like that I was ever going to see it. Oddly enough, at that point, we did not have the crystal clear audios. We did not know about them, at least not over around my neck of the woods. What we did know is that there were certain stories that we can get audio copies of, some decent quality, some horrible copies, like Marco Polo, absolutely atrocious. I got a copy of The Web of Fear on audio, and that was absolutely diabolical. I actually had some amateur equipment that I boosted up. It sounded a little bit better. Who knew, right, that doesn't matter anymore, that we're able to watch most of The Web of Fear. Now we got animation for it also. But the Tomb of the Cybermen always was pretty decent quality. And the one thing that I've always remembered about the Tomb of the Cybermen was the end of episode 2, the cliffhanger with "You belong to us, you shall be like us." And I thought, in my mind, not seeing a script or anything, what I thought that shot would look like. And I was really excited when I finally saw the story, and it looked exactly how I imagined it. And I was not disappointed, especially with that shot. Not disappointed one bit. That was phenomenal.
You belong to us. You shall be like us.
So that was really pretty cool. And it's a great memory to be able to look at that. Now, some of the people who got the video, they remember the story. They saw it back in the day. And even more interesting about that, not super interesting, but the camera script for the Tomb of the Cybermen at the end of episode 2. It doesn't say, "You belong to us, you shall be like us." It just says, "You belong to us." So at some point that was changed, but what a great cliffhanger. One of my all-time favorites. Getting the Tomb of the Cybermen basically for me was the start of a very slippery slope that I didn't realize was going to happen. Like I said, I'm in the U.S. The Tomb of the Cybermen was released in the UK May of 1992. At that point, we had found out with all of the Doctor Who releases that were coming out in the US, in the UK at the time, they're coming out with 2 stories per month. It was a pretty aggressive, regular schedule. In the US, they would come out in batches a couple times a year, maybe 4 to 6 titles a year, something like that. Maybe it's 4. I'd have to look it up. And Tomb of the Cybermen, as it was rushed released in the UK, it actually was also rushed release in the US. So it was going to be released in October of 1992. I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait for October to happen. I needed it ASAP. Collecting Doctor Who on video has always been a passion of mine, and knowing that there was a story out there that everyone else was seeing except for me was not acceptable. So I needed to figure out what to do, and the decision I made was to get it from the UK. Now, once again, I'm a 16-year-old, close to 18, I guess now, guy who does not really collect even the VHS, the US VHSs, but wanted to get Tomb of the Cybermen. I have one PAL VHS at that moment, and that is The Curse of Fenric, because I wanted the extended footage, and we didn't know when that was going to come out in the US, and that wasn't rushed released like Tomb was. So I talked to the only person at that time I knew in the UK, who I stayed at his house, a friend of a friend, and we wrote them physical letters. Could you please buy The Curse of Fenric for me? And he did, send it to me, and he sent, this is how much it was, and I sent that back to him. So with Tomb of the Cybermen, I did the same thing. Could you please buy Tomb of the Cybermen for me? This story I've wanted to see my whole time as being a Doctor Who fan. You know, this is like with everyone else. This is a really, really big deal for me. And so what did he do? He buys it, sends it to me. This arrives. Now, I have a bit of a dilemma. First of all, it's PAL, right? It's PAL, it's here. I'm holding in my hand. Now, I cannot stress this enough for folks who are newer to Doctor who never knew a time that this story was not available. And it's hard to articulate. Those of you who lived it with me, you know what I'm talking about. I'm holding my hand Tomb of the Cybermen. I'm holding in my hand something that I've wanted to see for so very long. It's on this tape. I can watch this tape, except I can't, because it's PAL. And my system, at that point, I only had NTSC stuff. I mean, I was 18 years old, right? And so I had to rely on someone else to help me. And that's where I reached out to my friend Lewis again. Lewis had supplied to me, remember Lewis from Visions? Lewis had supplied to me all of Planet of the Daleks in episodic format, recorded in Canada, if I'm not mistaken, a couple gens from off air. And so it included episode 3 in black and white. In the US, episode 3 was not syndicated. So I had that the first time, and it was, beautiful looking. It looked really nice. He did the conversion for The Curse of Fenric that I talked about earlier for me. He supplied me with a really nice quality copy, color copy of Doctor Who and the Silurians. Remember, all this stuff wasn't available. You couldn't just go and buy it, or it wasn't released on video yet. This is 1992. The color Doctor Who stuff didn't start till later 1992. The color Pertwees going into 1993. This was really unique. And, the idea that, I could just go watch it on YouTube or something, no, it's not going to happen. It is not going to happen. So it was really exciting to have this, but I needed to send this away. I just got it. I needed to send it. Did I try this in my NTSC VCR anyway, even though I know the difference between NTSC and PAL? Of course I did. Of course I tried it out, and it didn't play. And you could kind of make out Morris Berry on it, and it was just like, obviously it's not going to work, but I had to try. Maybe this was the NTSC version they sent me accidentally, and it's all going to work. It's all going to play. Well, no. But I love the cover so much. I just love the look of it so much. I thought, well, what if something happens to the tape? I want to at least keep the cover. So I sent the PAL tape, the actual physical tape, separately. And so, I sent the tape separately, in a case, of course. It wasn't just like I threw this into an envelope. And I sent it off. And it seemed like a year, but it's probably just a couple weeks, because I had Tomb of the Cybermen fairly early on. I got the conversion back, but I didn't get the PAL tape back. And I never got the PAL tape back. I ended up, once I knew I was collecting these for real, I ended up buying Tomb of the Cybermen again. Because I needed it for my collection. But it's pretty crazy, isn't it? I had that intuition that I wasn't going to see the PAL tape again. If I would have sent all of this, then I wouldn't have been able... Because this sounds stupid, but holding on to this and looking at this like literally daily, this is what kept me going, waiting for the Tomb of the Cybermen on, an NTSC conversion to come my way. So that was really pretty interesting that I waited, and I just knew that it wasn't nothing Lewis was doing, in a nasty way. It didn't make its way back to me for whatever reason, and it might just be as simple as because I got Curse of Fenric back. It just a lot of stuff didn't come back. Funny enough, because I did send him. Jeremy Bentham gave me VHS recordings, PAL recordings of season 22 in PAL. He sent them to me. We made an arrangement, and he sent them to me. The thing, because at that point they weren't available on VHS anyway. There was talk too that just like Resurrection of the Daleks, that these were not going to be released in the 2-part versions for whatever reason. I mean, those were rumors. That may have never been a real thing, but those were the rumors. So I made, once again, I was at Visions, saw Jeremy Bentham. I somewhat knew him. If I went to him today, he wouldn't know who I am at all. But at the time, I'm like, can I make an arrangement with you to get season 22 in its proper episodic format? And he said yes, and we got them, and I sent those along at some point to get converted, and those tapes never came back. But I think there was something wrong with those tapes, because you could see bits of tape in the window. Sorry, Jeremy, something was wrong with those tapes that you sent me. They were clearly old tapes also. But nevertheless, they released them 100 times over since then, so it's not an issue. It's not an issue at all, and I do actually have some of the season 22 stories off air from BBC One. Not that it matters, because the DVDs seem to take care of all that pretty well. So I get the tape back, and I put it into my VCR, the NTSC conversion. I put it in my VCR, and it starts up, and the picture starts to roll, and continues to roll. And it rolls out of control. Here I am about to start watching Tomb of the Cybermen. I've been waiting and waiting and waiting for, and it's rolling. This tape is rolling. I can't stop. I can't stabilize the picture. And back then it's a VCR. So you have the little things that you're trying to, stabilize the picture. That's not working. I go to the TV, stabilize that. I lived in a household that we loved VCRs. There was one almost in every room. I went to every room. And I'm trying this. I mean, this is Tomb of the Cybermen, and it's not playing in any of these. And I'm just like, of course, that's what's happening here. Finally, I took out a little portable, like 10-inch black and white TV set. I mean, we had all this stuff hanging around. We were pretty much an analog technology family. I took it out, and it was... I plugged my VCR into it. The picture is about, this size. It played just fine. Didn't roll or anything. So every time I wanted to watch Tomb of the Cybermen, I had to hook up my VCR to this little portable TV, probably about the same way that people would have saw it originally in the UK. And those were amazing times. They truly were amazing times. God, that was so much fun to be able to watch it and enjoy it. I took it to other people's houses to watch, and it played just fine there, just not in my own home. So, screw you. I don't know what else to say about that. That was annoying. But the thing is, too, I remember there was a fan who's kind of a well-known fan on Twitter. And I asked him, because he's in around the Minnesota area, and I asked him, I have Tomb of the Cybermen. Do you want a copy of it? And he's like, no, I'll wait till October until it's released over here. Okay. To me, it would have been like, yes, knowing my track record, I probably wouldn't have made him a copy anyway. But, you know, it was the thought that counts, I'm sure. So you get the tape itself. Right? Let's talk about the tape itself. And this is part of one of the things I want to do in this video series, if we keep it going, is I want to celebrate these and say what covers I like, which covers I don't like. If I say I don't like a cover, I'm hoping that if the artist is watching, that they know it's not a personal attack on them. Everyone has an opinion. Like, for example, I get people who say, I don't like your videos. All right, you know, they say it, and that's fine. Or I don't like your podcast. And I said, there's sometimes I don't like my podcast, and that shuts them up. But, you know, it's not personal. But I love this cover. You know, Alistair Pearson, this cover. And the thing about it is, and on the top it says Missing Presumed Dead, which I hate that. How about Missing Presumed Wipe? It never was alive to begin with. But returned BBC video after over 20 years. Isn't that something? And that it moves so fast. And this VHS cover says, I'm special. This VHS cover says, this is a pretty big deal. And it has the foil titles to it, you know, the foil lettering to it. The thing about this story, too, is that it was said that, now we don't know if this is true or not, DWB said it, that if 30,000 units of, meaning 30,000 copies of these were sold, that the BBC would open a missing episode office to look for more material. It sounds like first week of the release, it sold 23,000 units, which was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. It did not reach 30,000 sold until 1999. And, you know, especially from the White Book, it was kind of, you know, Richard Molesworth basically saying, we don't really know if there was really ever any true intent to open a missing episode office. More than likely, it was just maybe something that was said, whatever. Clearly it wasn't opened. If an office was opened, what would have happened? We don't know. You know, at that time, Ian Levine, especially in the 80s into the 90s, to a certain extent, mainly the 80s, was calling all these places, getting some stuff back. Paul Vanesis was doing a great deal of work to get missing material back. You know, the thing about Paul was that his lens, and Ian, correct me if I'm wrong here, but Paul's lens was bigger than Doctor Who. You know, in Cyprus, he got some Z cars. He got Reign of Terror, if I'm not mistaken, some episodes of Reign of Terror. Once again, correct me if I'm wrong. This is off the top of my head. You know, so, I mean, people were doing it. BBC just wasn't officially doing anything like that. And that's still really the case till today. You have people who are attached to the BBC taking, you know, coming in, taking on some queries and whatnot, but you know, I mean, Phil Morris, he did not work for the BBC, and he had, you know, been all around the world looking for stuff, and got us some episodes back. So you just never know. And, you know, in a way, Tomb kind of seemed like a new herald of finding missing episodes. Like, this felt like this is the start of a whole new stuff. And we were pretty lucky up to that point. You know, going back to when Sue Malden designated Doctor Who as a kind of a pet project of hers to kind of feel out how, you know, to select material for the archive and do certain things to, you know, how to run an archive based on getting, you know, material back for Doctor Who and selecting recordings for Doctor Who and how those are classified in the archive system. And so, if you know, I think most of us bought hook, line, and sinker that there was going to be a possibility of a missing episode office being set up, only to find out later that it wasn't. You know, because I once again thought that this was going to be a brand new way of getting missing episodes. We were doing so well too up until the Tomb find, and then after Tomb of the Cybermen was found, we did not get full episodes until 1999 with the Crusades episode 1, The Lion. But what we did get in that gap were a couple really amazing things. One being all those telesnaps being found and for so many stories, a visual record that we had no idea had existed, apart from a few pieces that were part of like Christopher Barry's collection and some other people's collection. I'm thinking about mainly like obviously the Power of the Daleks, the Savages, some of the Moon Base, stuff like that. But then was it Marcus Hearn that was able to find all of these records in the written archives, BBC written archives, about these telesnaps for Doctor Who. And then also the what we had called the crystal clear audios that Graham Strong had recorded back in transmission. And, all these wonderful people, illegal or not, all these wonderful people who didn't want to keep them to themselves. They created a distribution system so that everyone could have the possibility of getting these wonderful, wonderful, wonderful clear recordings. And that is pretty fantastic. Who knew also? I mean, in the early 90s, they were releasing The Power of the Daleks, The Evil of the Daleks, Fury from the Deep as audio format, just on cassette. And funny enough, when this got released, there was an audio version, narrated audio of the Tomb of the Cybermen with John Pertwee doing the narration, and they still released that at the same time they released this, which people enjoy, people really liked. As far as getting all of the Doctor Who missing episodes on audio, which at that point, the audio quality wasn't great. It wasn't Graham's audio. But was in 1999, the first release on audio of this new kicked off range was The Massacre. And boy, was that exciting, and was that pretty cool. And every episode was released on CD. Who knew about that? And now they're being released on vinyl. Wow. If you would have told me, and I'm going to say this probably throughout the series often, because once again, if you are a newer fan to the series, I'm glad you got a chance to enjoy this, because if you would have told me in 1991 that eventually not only would all of Doctor Who missing episodes be released onto audio officially, it wasn't going to be on cassette, it would be on CD, and they would be from a source that we didn't know about, where the audio was, for the most part, for most of the stories, was connected directly into the TV to record, and then they were being restored. I would have never believed you. I would never believed you. So with this tape, what you get is, first of all, you get all 4 episodes of The Tomb of the Cybermen. I think the only thing that is really cut from this is the next week caption, which probably was not on the film prints that was sent to Hong Kong. Now, on the DVDs, they were reinstated at the end of episode 4. The next week, The Abominable Snowman. Now, it also is been on other versions of Doctor Who on VHS, if I'm not mistaken, at the end of possibly The Mind Robber, that it was like next week, The Invasion. I might be confusing that with the BSB recordings, but we know that I think it made it through, possibly accidentally, at that, on some of those Troughton. And it's really interesting too, because it was at that point that a lot of these episodic Hartnells, like for episode 4 of whatever story, or the last episode of whatever story, most likely that next week caption was cut out because it was talking about next week of the new stories starting. People at BBC thought we'd be horribly confused by it. Where's the rest of the story? But nevertheless, so some of that stuff is pretty amazing. As far as restoration on these, only thing that really was done with it, the film was cleaned when it was transferred, I think it was sonically cleaned, it wasn't it, at that point no one was doing the work that is obviously we just expect now, right? It's not even a matter of like, well, will it get restored? No, of course it's going to get restored. That's how it is now, and to levels that we never expected in our entire life. So but it didn't matter. It didn't matter at that point. All we wanted to do was see this. That's all we wanted to do, was see the Tomb of the Cybermen and enjoy it. And then at the beginning of this, you have Morris Berry giving a little bit of a story about it. And, it looks a bit like a hostage video. So does this. I'm not going to lie. I get that. But, it's like, at one point when he's trying to tell a story about Michael Kilgariff, you think that he's going to hold up a newspaper with, like, today's date. Like, I'm okay. I'm okay. They just want me to talk about Tomb of the Cybermen a little bit more. Then they said they're going to release me. I just feel like that he's much more warm than I'm giving him credit for. Much more warmer than I am on this thing, that's for sure. But the thing is that it's one of the first times we really had some specially recorded content apart from like the years tapes, and that was something that was really unique at the time. And I thought, boy, how lucky are we to even have that? Once again, looking into the future, who knew what was coming our way? But that was really a nice touch, and that was, I believe, shot at the Museum of Moving Images with all the Cybermen helmets all around. It was just a nice piece. And what was really interesting about that is he's talking about Tomb of the Cybermen. He's talking about that bit where they rip open the Cyberman's chest and all that goo comes out. And they show a clip of it. And I remember thinking at the time, oh my God, that is a clip from Tomb of the Cybermen. I have not seen Tomb of the Cybermen before. My God, I'm actually seeing a clip from the episode, and that was really exciting. That was really cool, and I think about that now. I also think about too Morris Berry and he's just kind of focuses on talking about Michael Kilgariff becoming the cyber controller and what it took for him to convince him to do so. And I thought to myself, first of all, it works. I enjoy it. It's very short, but it's very concise. But I thought to myself, what made him decide that was what he wanted to talk about for this? And I wonder if there's more to it or less. And I'm assuming that was produced by J&T, because that seemed to be what he did at that time. That seemed to be what his job was for BBC Enterprises, was create some Doctor Who content. We got the years tapes. We got, some other stuff. But so I'm presuming that's what this was, just as he did for the Nicholas Courtney links the next year for the Invasion. So that is really really important. Also, and one of the things I really love about these tapes, and I always kept, and I think a lot of us never really gave it much thought, is the stuff that's inside the tapes, especially something like this, where it is a little thing about Tomb of the Cybermen. Order your copy now, which, well, I thought this came with the tape, so I not only ordered, I bought it. But maybe what happened here is that my friend Steven, who ordered the tape for me in the UK, or got the tape for me in the UK, picked this up perhaps? Or was this part of the tape? Was this inside the tape? You all let me know, because I always thought this was really neat. And it says, order your copy now, win one of 2 Cybermen replica masks. Well, guess who won one of them? Guess who won one of them? Not me. This is just a Cyberman replica hat, but I just wanted to pretend for a second that I won one. And I don't really know if anyone actually ever did win one, because I've never heard of anyone winning one. If you did win the Cyberman replica mask, can you send us a picture of it, please? I would love to see what that looked like. If you want. I mean, I don't know. It's up to you. On the back, it talks about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy being on VHS for the first time. Which, if I'm not mistaken, this was movie version, wasn't it? Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was released on 2 tapes, movie version. Which, it's like, when? No. And now, since then, we got this really nice DVD set, and then we got this Blu-ray set. So, and also it was released on Laserdisc also. At least it was released on Laserdisc in the US. I'm not sure if it was released on Laserdisc in the UK. So, lots of really fun, great memories there. And then finally, for the cover itself, like I mentioned earlier, this is an Alistair Pearson cover. And you have this wonderful illustration. You have on the back, it's very straightforward to what Doctor Who releases were at the time. And you have, of course, the diamond logo, which was at that point became the branding for Doctor Who outside of, at least as far as BBC video was concerned. Let's go with that. It showed up, it wasn't very consistent. Like nowadays, it's very consistent. Whether you like the current logo or not, they want it on everything. Back then, you might have this as the logo for the VHS range, but then you might have the McCoy logo for the novelizations, the Target novelizations, because we hadn't got to the point yet of the TV movie, which does kind of try to change things as much as possible, even though they still don't quite do it. But this was the look for Doctor Who in the 90s. A big part of it was this, and it works really well. And it depends on how they wanted to do it. The logo would switch sides. It wouldn't always be the same, but it's good. And then one of the things I always thought was fun in the inside would always be different sorts of ways of doing the inside. And what you get would be the stories that had been already released on BBC Video, and it would tell you the adversaries. Why, it's interesting that it's laid out that way. But look how little was released on VHS by that point. There wasn't any Colin Baker released at that point. There's more Troughton released, but there wasn't any Colin at that point, and only one Sylvester McCoy. And the Davison titles were very few also. Eventually they all came out. Before I go, on my videos that I look at for DVD, Blu-rays, I always like to do comparisons because I like to see where we've come from. And so what I'm doing now is I'm just going to show a comparison here because there's a couple things. First of all, we have the VHS that we're going to show. Then we also have the original DVD release of Tomb of the Cybermen that was not vid-fired. In fact, there was an Easter egg on here that showed what vid-fired would look like. It wasn't really meant for us, per se. It was more meant for the restoration team to kind of see what this would look like vid-fired on DVD. And then from the revisitation set, we have the vid-fired, fully restored DVD. We want to show a little bit of all of that. Now, the only thing, to my knowledge, that is different, apart from the restoration of these two DVDs, is simply that this one had Tomb Watch on it, TOMBWATCH, which was a panel that had a lot of the cast of Tomb of the Cybermen on it, and they couldn't get the rights to put it onto this new release. So if you have this, hold on to this. If it's going to be on the season 5 collection set, I don't know, but it certainly is nice to have all the same. And so it's really interesting to kind of keep up. And you're probably wondering, how much stuff do I have that I can tell you all the different versions and show them to you? And partly why I want to do this, because you never know when I have to downsize, so I kind of want to make some kind of visual record of it. You're lucky I didn't bring out the novelization to show you also, or the different audio soundtracks too. That's for another day, right? Here's those comparisons. So I just wanted to thank you very much. This is just a kind of a look at what this video series could look like. Was this worth your time? Did you enjoy this? Let me know. Let me know if there's something that you think is missing from this politely. I'm very fragile, actually. That you could just let me know, send me a note, send me an email, put it in comments of wherever you saw this. But am I going to get through all of these? Probably not, but you know what? Let's have some fun and go through it, sharing my personal experiences. In the comments, share your personal experiences. If you like this video, let me know, and I'll do more. And we'll just have fun with it. And there's so much we can talk about.
And there are more space adventures on these BBC videos with Patrick Troughton, the second incarnation of Doctor Who.